I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Watchung Borough Board of Education on November 11th, 2021 at 7 p.m. May we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that the advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung at which formal action may be taken. This meeting is being conducted remotely using communication technology with an option to attend in person. Instructions for joining the meeting and participating in public comments have been posted on the district website and sent to Watchung Borough and the Watchung Public Library, as well as to the school community through an email blast. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda at points in the meeting provided for the public to address the board. Members of the public also have been given the option to submit public comments to the board secretary via email or written letter no later than 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Individuals submitting comments via email or written letter must state their names and addresses. Recording or photographing other than for private personal use requires the consent of parents/guardians whose children may be included in the image. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barbella?
Here.
Mr. Buccarelli?
Here.
Mrs. Harvey?
Here.
Mrs. Ingracia?
Here.
Mr. Kraft?
Here.
Mr. McDonald?
Here.
Mrs. Broad? Okay, sorry. Was she here? Mrs. Scharf?
Here.
Okay, is Mrs. Murad on? Does anyone see her? Yes, no.
No.
Okay, we have 7 board members present.
Okay. And then we're going to move to the swearing in of our new board member, Rita Sedbani.
Rita. Aaron, is Rita, did you give Rita, there we go, allow to talk. There we go. Hi, Rita, you're on mute. Can you unmute? There you go.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we will complete the swearing in of a new board member who was appointed at the last meeting. Rita Sedbani is going to repeat the oath, excuse me, required oath for school board members. And when she's finished, she will be an official board member for the Watchung Borough Board of Education. So Rita, please repeat after me. I, Rita Sedbani.
I, Rita Sedbani,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same and to the governments established in the United States
to the same and to the governments established in the United States
and this state
and this state
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
under the authority of the people, So help me God.
I, Rita Sadvani,
I, Rita Sadvani,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
for the office of member of a Board of Education,
for the office of member of a Board of Education,
am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4.1,
am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4.1,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially, and justly
impartially, and justly
perform all duties of that office
perform all duties of that office
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
perform all duties of that office according to the best of my ability. So help me God.
Rita, congratulations, you're now an official board member.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Rita. Welcome aboard.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Adam.
And then we're going to move to the election results. I think that's you, Rich.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. The annual school election for Watchung Borough, County of Somerset was held on November 2nd, 2021. There were 5,382 registered voters. Of them, 4,185 votes. From them, 4,185 votes were cast. Following results are unofficial at this time, but these are the most recent posted results from the county. Richard Buccarelli with 1,259 votes, Anthony Ingracia with 1,173 votes, and Dory Harvey with 941 votes are elected to a 3-year term of office as board members.
Congratulations,
Thank you,
everyone.
Rich. And then we're going to move to board member comments. Are there any comments from board members? I
I
actually
have a
had,
comment.
oh, okay. Go for it.
First of all, Rita, thank you and welcome. Thank you for wanting to become part of this board. First, I want to say that I'm very pleased to know that Dory and Rich will get to continue their work for the next 3 years on this board. And I thank them and their families for all that they do and how dedicated they are in moving our school district forward. I also want to thank the community for supporting them. Work. That's what the majority of this board does collaboratively. I have no idea how many votes I received 2 years ago, but I do know that I ran to change things along with Dory and Rich, and that we were humbled that we were given the opportunity to be here, along with many of our fellow board members. Working together as a team is the only way that we as a board can keep this district moving forward. Us coming together to work is what has benefited all of our students. This is a board of 9, not of 1. This board, again, is about doing the work for these children in this community. Mr. Ingracia was elected to the Board of Education, and to him I say welcome in January. And I hope that it's clear that this board is not about bragging, boasting, mudslinging, or having an axe to grind, which was evident throughout his campaign. Mr. Ingracia's statements at these board meetings and the mailer that I received at my home was quite frankly distasteful. It was stated in the mailer that this board lacked humility. It was also stated that he would help all children, insinuating that that President Harvey and this board didn't already do this. The fact that this was said shows me that he doesn't know who we are, how we work, or what we do here. President Harvey is a teacher like myself, and it's in our blood to help all children, not just a selected few. With all that said, I'm very curious as to how he plans to get to work with the majority of this board after the campaign that he ran. I wish him nothing but the best in mending these fences. I hope that he will follow our committee process and all other communication processes that we have in place, and show that he is willing to get to work and work with the members of this board to serve all the children in this district. It is my personal opinion that when you were elected to a seat on a board of education, that it is your responsibility to work with everyone in a professional and respectful manner. This includes communicating with the president, vice president, and fellow board members. Now, with that said, let's get back to work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jen. I have some board member comments. I just want to say today is Veterans Day, and I want to thank all of our veterans for their service to the nation and to the people of the United States. Having had family members who served and still serve in the military, I understand the sacrifices they and their families make to serve this country. So on behalf of all of the board members of the Board of Education, we honor your service. I'd also like to personally thank the community for re-electing Rich Buccarelli and myself for another term as Board of Education members. I'm grateful for the faith you continue to have in me and my fellow board members to move the district forward. All of us on the board have done our best to work collaboratively to improve and grow and to achieve the goals we have set for the district. I wish to thank the hard work and dedication of our superintendent, the administration, the teachers, the nurse, the support staff, the custodians, the parents, and most of all, the children. The members of the Board of Education and myself have a single focus, which is the children. Everything we strive for is to give our children the best education possible. I promise to continue to give my best to the community and the children of Watchung. I also wanted to mention that during a November 4th town council meeting, one of the council members stated that they were waiting for a response from the Board of Education on a topic. Since then, I have spoken to or spoken with Mayor Bala, our liaison to the council, to find out what specific questions there might be. He was unaware of any specific questions for the board. So I would just like to stress the importance of all Board of Ed and council members to work through the liaisons. Having a Board of Ed and council liaison is the structure for communication between the Board of Ed and the council, and this allows for a more timely response to any inquiries. I also wanted to acknowledge the efforts of our board, administration, and DRG that we've taken towards educating our community on the referendum. We were present with information to provide the community at the PTO food trucks, the Town Harvest Festival. We had walkthroughs at Valley View and Bayberry, and we were also at WEF's Trunk or Treat. I wasn't able to send out another email to the board members about their availability on attending more events. But if any board member is able to attend any future referendum events, just please let me know so that we can just make sure that there isn't a quorum. And it really has been wonderful meeting many community members at these events, answering questions and providing information on the referendum. We have received positive responses at these events and encourage all to continue to become informed on this topic by sending any questions to our referendum email on the school website and also joining us at any of these events. Thank you. Are there any other board member comments before we move on? Okay, so we're going to move on then to the superintendent's remarks.
Good evening, everyone. First, welcome to Mrs. Sadvani. It's great to have you join us officially this evening, Rita. Welcome. And congratulations to Mrs. Harvey, Mr. Buccarelli, and Mr. Ingracia on the election results. I look forward to working with all of you as we move forward in our work together. I also want to recognize and thank all the veterans in our community for their brave sacrifices. I had the good fortune of attending an assembly at Bayberry this afternoon with several veterans present. And I know the principals will update us on their school's Veteran Day celebrations that took place today and some of the other activities this week. With Thanksgiving fast approaching, I also want to let everyone know that we will no longer enforce the post-travel quarantine for unvaccinated students beginning on Monday, November 15th. Our local health official is okay with this, and similarly situated districts have already taken this step. We'll continue to follow all of our in-school safety protocols and ask for everyone's cooperation in screening their children each morning for symptoms. And just to be clear, we recommend that families follow the CDC guidance, but we no longer will enforce the post-travel quarantine. We want our students in school as much as possible. On a related note, our district physician is hosting the vaccine clinic at Bayberry tomorrow afternoon, and I understand it's sold out. That's good news. On the agenda, you'll see 2 grants from WEF, Watchung Educational Foundation, and I just want to point that out and thank WEF for its ongoing support. And then next for us on the superintendent remarks portion of the agenda is our annual presentation on student achievement and progress toward our district goals. Last year, we had to use NJSLA data from the previous year because we did not have the NJSLA results. This spring again, this past spring, we did not have the NJSLA, but we did have 2 other assessments we had to administer, the dynamic learning maps and the access test. And we'll hear about those results as we're required to report that at this time of year. But the state, through the county office, has also given us the choice of how we want to provide our student achievement data. And we selected the Irating diagnostic data as a good indication of an assessment of our students and their current academic progress. So I'm very pleased this evening that we also have our 3 STEM teachers, Morgan Pistorius, Carolyn Mills, and Diana Backish with us. They will participate in the presentation, as will our principals and Mr. Toda and Mr. Pepe. So Mr. Pepe, if you could share your screen with the presentation, and we'll begin as we normally do with our vision for learning. As we continue to actualize our vision, yes, thank you. Our vision and teach our students to explore and inquire, think critically and creatively, and to work together to solve real world problems. Confident students will learn and grow and be prepared for a complex, ever-changing world. Now, as I said, we're structuring this presentation not only with some required student achievement data, but we also, you can go right to the next slide, Mr. Pepe. We also want to give you an update on the progress toward the district goals. And we'll complete the presentation with the next steps for advancing toward the district goals. What we tried to do with the Irating diagnostic data, and we have both the spring results, which were produced last June when the students took the diagnostic, and we also have the fall results. What we want to point out are a couple of things. So the obvious thing is that the green section is the what we are striving for, because that is going to, depending on which setting we have with the Irating data, and I'll explain that in a minute, we want as many students to be on or above grade level. And what we've done here is present the diagnostic data for the spring for the reading results. And you'll see here that Tier 1 has 58% of the students on or above grade level, 35% at a level just below that, and then 6% where students need more interventions. We also have the math data with the end of year assessments on the next slide. And you'll see there we have 49% in green, 45% in yellow, and 6% in red. Now, what I would like to point out too, and in many ways, this is understandable, given that the students were not in school full time throughout the year. primarily on the half-day in-person schedule, and anywhere from 30 to up to 30% of our students at some point during the year on remote learning. But what's encouraging is the next slide, which includes the reading assessment that was taken this fall. And again, this is with the beginning of the year settings, which is basically designed to help us address any learning gaps and understand the students' needs at the beginning of the year, to make sure that we are providing the kind of support that they need. And the very nice thing about the iReady program is that there are opportunities for students to practice, to explore at the current level that they are at based on the diagnostic assessment, so that each time a student practices during the week and time is made for that during the school day, that student is basically using the program to meet his or her own needs. So here we have green, which obviously is what we're striving for, 86% in tier 1, 9% in the yellow range, and then 5% in the red. And for math, it's relatively similar with 84% in tier 1, 10% in yellow, and 5% in red. And you can see that it varies by grade level, but it's relatively consistent throughout the grades. So a couple of important points about the iReady diagnostic data, which I begun to explain on the next slide. Right, so the performance data is measured against expectations created by historical iReady data, and the spring results are measured against the end of year expectations that iReady has created. The fall results are measured against the beginning of year expectations, again, to help us get a better sense, because we don't necessarily need to know exactly where they sit against the end of year expectations at this point. But I do, because we will have follow-up presentations throughout the year, and the mid-year data in February will look different because the student performance will be measured against the progress toward the end of year expectations. So I don't anticipate we'll see as much green in the triangles. But again, we will be able to show, we'll have more detailed data about progress being made between the diagnostic assessments. So again, these are snapshots of where the students are at this particular time of the year. And I know we're reporting this in November, but these assessments were taken in early October. And the next slide, please, Rich. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Deto to have her talk a little bit more about that access and DLM assessments, dynamic learning maps.
Thank you, Mr. Alexis. 2 statewide assessments were administered in the spring of 2021. Those were the Access for English Language Learners and the DLM, or the Dynamic Learning Maps. The Access tests measures English language proficiency in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Students are scored on a 6-point proficiency level, and they must attain a score of 4.5 overall in order to be considered for exiting from English language instruction and services. You can go to the next slide. This is that 6-point scale that shows the levels of proficiency. Level 1, entering, level 2, beginning, level 3, developing, level 4, expanding, level 5, bridging, and level 6, reaching. You can go to the next slide. The dynamic learning maps measure student proficiency in English language arts, mathematics, and science. This is an assessment for students with the most significant cognitive disabilities who do not take the NJSLA because they're being instructed on the essential elements, which are grade-specific expectations about what students with significant cognitive disabilities should know and be able to do rather than the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. Thank you. The results of the DLM are discussed at a student's annual review meeting, and the IEP team considers that information when writing learning goals and objectives and determining an educational program. The results can also be used during discrete trial teaching, which involves breaking up larger tasks or goals into sub-skills or smaller components and teaching them individually. You can go to the, thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Toda. The other portion of the presentation, as I mentioned, is about the district goals. And these are the ones that were adopted this summer, and we are providing updates on them at 3 times during the year: November, February, and then again at the end of the year. First goal is about supporting innovative instruction and design thinking so that we can encourage, according to our vision, more problem solving across the curriculum. We also have goals on enhancing student wellness, ensuring a culturally vibrant, inclusive school community, and finally, maintaining the focus on the financial needs of the district. So again, I'm very pleased that we have our teachers with us to deliver this presentation on what's happening in our STEM labs and in our STEAM-related programs. We go to the next slide. Great. So the essential question is, how are we advancing instruction toward design thinking and problem solving? How are we making learning more authentic? How are we adding real world challenges? So first, we're going to hear from Morgan talking a little bit about the teaching and learning process with design thinking and what that looks like. We're going to hear about activities and instruction that are taking place in the classroom, but also in the after school clubs, our coding and robotics club, which is new this year, and also through potential field trips. And we're also going to hear a little bit about professional learning and how we're sharing strategies in our schools. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Pistorius and Diana and Carolyn. You're welcome to handle this any way you would like. Ladies, thank you very much for doing it.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. So we wanted to do a brief introduction to design thinking and problem solving because not everybody understands what the full process is. So the problem solving process that a lot of us are used to, such as the engineering design process and the scientific process, focuses on solving problems using your own opinions and your own experiences. But design thinking is really a human-centered approach, and it starts from the very first step where you're empathizing with an audience that needs something. So it's first identifying who needs a solution and learning about them, then defining the problem, then ideating, which is just brainstorming and creating several solutions, not just one, prototyping to build representations of one or more ideas, and finally testing ideas and gaining user feedback. And we know from the other problem solving processes that we've seen that we spent a lot of time in these kind of orange hexagons, the ideate, prototyping, and testing. We go back and forth. It's not a linear model. And this is a process that we're trying to encourage our students to use, and we find ourselves using it in all of our lessons at Valley View, but we really wanted to focus on 2 units that we feel like are really special to our school, really put a lot of emphasis on design thinking and show how we're scaffolding these skills from 5th grade to 7th grade. So on the next slide, we'll talk about 5th grade first.
Yeah, so this is Diana. So in 5th grade, we focus on creating a board game for 1 marking period. Students start with empathizing by identifying features of games that make them fun to play. So we do a whole day where students experience games and then they reflect and analyze how those games work and what the user experience was like for them, and to kind of take away what was easy to learn and what was fun about the games that made them enjoyable to play. In the next step for define, we have students define what educational games are, what makes them engaging, and what makes them make learning fun. And we also, for each component of their board game, we provide a design brief. And in the design brief, we identify criteria and constraints of each of the components for their board game. We find that this is really important because when we go back to these design briefs, we want students to use vocabulary such as criteria and constraints and words that engineers actually use in the real world. In the next step for Ideate, we use mind mapping to brainstorm potential game topics. And you can see at the bottom left, we have a student actually presenting their mind map to the students in the class. And it's a good time for students to then share their ideas. In the next step, prototyping, this is when students are actually developing the components of their game. And in this step, we wanted the students to experience both the software and all the tools that the STEM lab has to offer. So this way they become comfortable with all those tools in 5th grade, and it can carry into further grades. So the first tool that they use is Canva, and they use it to design an instruction sheet to be printed on the poster printer. The next tool they use is Adobe Illustrator to design a game board, which is cut out on the laser cutter. The next tool is using Tinkercad, which is a web-based 3D modeling program to design game pieces that are printed on the Stratus printer. And we also use Adobe Illustrator again to design a logo, which will be cut with the vinyl cutter. And you can see in the bottom right under prototype, there is an example of a student logo there. And in the top left there, those are all the game pieces that students have made in class. The last step of the process for the students is to actually test their board games. And so we have a game day where students share and test all the games that they have made. And then we also make sure that we take the time for students to get feedback from other students who've experienced their game and see what students liked about their games and also improvements that they make. So it brings it back all the way back to empathizing and understanding the user. So that's 5th grade in a nutshell. You can go to the next slide.
Our 7th grade unit that we are doing right now is kind of a perfect example of design thinking and how we can bring it all together. And we love this unit. We haven't been able to fully teach it because of COVID and restrictions. So we're really excited to be doing this hands-on unit and really being able to complete everything this year. So we begin this unit by defining food deserts and identifying the connection between food deserts and low economic status areas. We also use a mapping tool from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, where students can locate where food deserts are located, and we ask them to locate the nearest one so that they can relate and see just how close food deserts are to us. And once we've really understood how big of a problem this is for people not that far away, we start to brainstorm solutions. And we discuss how can we fix this problem of a growing population despite our lack of arable land for growing and fresh water for the plants. Ultimately, we come up with the idea of vertical gardening as our solution. And then we research 4 different types of hydroponic systems so that the students can learn about all the scientific design that is behind it. In the Ideate section, we're always sketching solutions and models, and we make sure that our students know that their first idea is not always their best. So we encourage them to come up with lots of solutions. In the first actually building part that the students do is they build a system or a support system for their hydroponic system. And before we give them the PVC and say, go build it, we have them make a mini model with Connects to demonstrate potential ideas. and really work and see how it would work. And then they are working in groups, and they have a few different designs in their group. Everybody comes up with their own, and then they use a design matrix to evaluate their solution against the criteria and the constraints and figure out who has the best solution at the group, or if they can take one part of one person's solution and combine it with somebody else's to come up with the ultimate solution. In the prototyping section, like I said, the first step that the students complete is building a platform that can support their hydroponic system. And you see that in the picture above the define. This group is working on building their structure. Then after that, they will design and build an aeroponic or ebb and flow system. We have 3 groups working on aeroponic systems and 3 on ebb and flow so that they can see the differences between the two. And in the picture underneath where it says prototype, you can see a student holding up her pH that they test the water twice a week so that they can make adjustments. And then they also learn how to use SketchUp, which is a CAD software that engineers actually use. And so you can see it's a step up from that Tinkercad that we're using in 5th grade. And they learn how to use this to build a model of their hydroponic system, and learn about how engineers might use CAD software to present their ideas instead of building something for a client. And the last about 2 weeks of our unit, which is what we're in right now, the students are presented with a grand design challenge where they have to take everything they've learned throughout this entire marking period and come up with a system that they're proposing to a community council in Atlanta, Georgia. And they created their designs in SketchUp, these samples of what they were thinking the clients might like. And they worked with another group to have some peer reviews. So they all showed their designs and again, brought it back to those criteria and constraints and made sure it met the needs of the client, not what they thought was great, but what the client really needs for their community members. And then on Monday, they will present their final recommendations to a team of engineers. And they will hear some feedback on their design and really get to show them how they're so knowledgeable about these systems. They present their data and their CAD models and examples of how they've actually grown a hydroponic system. So that is our 5th grade unit. Or 7th grade, sorry.
So we also started a coding and robotics club this year. And, we found that we touch on a lot of topics in our STEM classes, and students were excited and wanted to dive deeper into this. So that's why we kind of decided to start this coding and robotics club. We just started about 5 weeks ago, but already we're using a lot of the new tools that we've gotten to promote design thinking and problem solving. So on the right here, you can see a bunch of different pictures of some of the projects that we have started in class. So on the right, one of the tools that we have used is Little Bits. And these are tiny little magnets and basic circuitry that students can connect together to learn about how circuits work and what components react with another to build a system or build a little invention. And that's what one of the students is using on the right. We also, for Halloween, we did paper circuits and we created Halloween greeting cards. And in paper circuits, we explored how circuits are connected and what components are needed in order for a circuit to work. And they had a lot of fun with creating those Halloween cards. Yesterday, we started using Makey Makeys, which is one of my favorite things. And it's really great. It's this invention kit that allows for everyday objects to be turned into simple circuits or act as a controller for your computer. And we had students exploring yesterday how controllers can be designed for like user experience and creating, using the controllers for playing a piano or even figuring out what materials are conductive. And lastly, we use code.org to explore AI for oceans, which is all about how machines learn and the importance of gathering data so you can have machines learn to create for a better world. So that's bringing in that empathy there. And as an extension for that, we had students explore an actual AI program where it was a safari park and they were trying to capture information about animals and see if they actually, if their program could see the animals. So that's the overall design thinking and problem solving that we are incorporating in this club.
And like Mr. Alexis mentioned, we want to make sure that the staff is familiar with design thinking since it's one of our goals. And it's important to us that the staff understands that they can be bringing these concepts into their own classrooms. It doesn't have to be isolated to just the STEM room. So at the beginning of October, when we had our 2 PD days, Diana and I led a 2-hour workshop with our staff about design thinking. And we really wanted to put them in the shoes of a student participating in design thinking. So we started off right away with a design challenge where the staff was challenged to create a wallet that met the needs of another staff member. After we went through the entire design process with even a few iterations, we brought it back and we really put on our teacher hats and started thinking about what design thinking is and how we can bring it into our classrooms. So we compared the design thinking process to some processes that are familiar to them, like the scientific process and the writing process, so that they can see it's really not far off from the concepts that they're already teaching in their classrooms. And then we discussed some possible ideas for how to implement design thinking into the classrooms, and we had some recommendations based on subject level. And then in our STEM group, just with Diana and myself, we are lucky to have been connected with IBM, and they have reviewed our curriculum and given us some recommendations for how they can support what we are already doing in the classroom. We've chatted with them a few times already, and we are definitely continuing this relationship and hoping to learn from each other. So now I think we're going to switch over to, oh, no.
Yeah, these are just a few potential field trips that Principal Kidd is working on, taking the students to Battery Park. And Karen, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about these, but.
Well, Morgan and Diana are working with me on the Battery Park one because the food systems and climate change match beautifully with the 7th grade curriculum. Am I right, Morgan and Diana? Did I get it right? Okay, good.
Yes.
And then the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum, it kind of goes along with multiple grade levels. In our 7th and 8th grade social studies, we're looking a lot at primary sources and primary documents and artifacts to help inform decision making when students are making decisions about things that have happened in the past and looking at different perspectives. And additionally, they also have some wonderful aeronautic and some space exhibits there. And in 5th grade, we do study space. And in our STEM lab, we do touch on these subjects. So they're 2 really great field trips that we're trying to put together for the spring to give our kids a little bit of that hands-on learning that we know is so important.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to turn it over to Carolyn Mills now to talk about the wonderful work she's doing with our younger learners at Bayberry.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Carolyn Mills, for anyone that I have not met. And here are just some of the many ways on how we introduce design thinking at the elementary level. So you may have heard the buzzword STREAM. It's just challenges that incorporate reading. So at the beginning of class, we'll read a story together and we'll talk about the characters, settings, problems, and solutions. Students then have to complete a challenge based off of the characters' problems that happen in the story. This really emphasizes that empathy portion of design thinking. Here are some examples on the screen of some stories that we have read and the challenges that the students have to complete that go along with those stories. On the next slide, we have some larger challenges that take place over several weeks. For example, we study buoyancy and students have to design a flotation device for a doll and we'll test it out and put them in a pool. We also try to incorporate problems using important figures in history, such as Martin Luther King Jr., and students will have to build a podium for him to stand on and give his I Have a Dream speech. On the next slide, for the upper grade levels, we also use stories to design solutions for characters. We are currently reading Balloons Over Broadway for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and we take a tour of the engineers at the Macy's studio, and then students have to pitch an idea. Oh, I think it's back one slide. There we go. Nope. Uh-oh, is it not there? Oh, no. Oh, so I'll keep going. So students take a virtual tour of the engineers at the Macy's studio, and they pitch an idea for a float that would be popular to all audiences at this year's parade. And then students actually get to create the float. And I thought there was a slide in there with pictures. Currently, students have a Poppet mask float and a Pikachu, because these are floats that they thought would be popular for audiences today.
Carolyn, they're on the next slide. It's on the next
Oh, there
slide.
they are. Yay. Okay, there's
Sorry
copy
about that.
paste different order. Yes, so you can see the Poppet mask float that the students were really excited about, and then the Pikachu. So back on the previous slide, I talk about just some topics that we go over, such as energy, and students have to build a wind-powered car. And you can see some pictures on the side there. We actually have the cars being tested in front of the fan. This was great. We actually did this at home last year as well. And I got some great videos of students sending me their cars being blown by their hair dryers at home. So they had a good time with that. We also have some weather units where we study climates and regions, and students build a house that could survive a hurricane and a snowstorm. And these culminate in me dumping flour on their houses or water and blowing a fan on it to see what category storms that their houses could survive. We also study space travel, and students have to design a spaceship to safely land astronauts on Mars. On the next slide, I have a ton of apps and websites that we encourage design thinking and problem solving. We have virtual escape rooms that always start off with a story and a problem, and students have to escape and solve the problem. We also have apps like Inventioneers, where students have to design inventions to solve problems for characters on the app. Next, on the next slide, I quickly want to talk about coding in our classroom. Week of Code is coming up, and we have a plethora of apps and websites to get students coding. We have robots in our classroom, and we also have Kano kits. These are computers that students can actually put together while we learn about all the different parts. And when the computer is actually fully put together and turned on, you can see on the picture on the right, the back is actually clear, so students can see all the lights lighting up and all the parts working together. And last, we have always had a computer type robotic club in Bayberry, but this year we are officially calling it our Coding and Robotics Club, where students will be completing extended activities based off lessons in class, but they are done with more independence. And that's on the last slide, the Coding and Robotics one, but that about wraps it up at Bayberry. Super quick.
Thank you very much. Our next, thank you all three of you. That's wonderful. It's really exciting, the work that you're doing with the students and the staff. Social emotional learning is the focus of our next goal, and our essential question here is how we are enhancing student wellness and social emotional learning and keeping a growth mindset at the forefront in terms of helping our learners understand that learning is a process, that we are in continual process throughout our lives, and that it's okay to get answers wrong. It's not too often, I think we all as human beings get, I guess, a little too focused on somehow an idea of a fixed intelligence. But the truth is, and the science and data support this, that people learn and grow at different rates. And that's what really a growth mindset is emphasizing. So the more that we can help our young learners understand that they will continue to grow and learn, the better they will be in the long run over the course of their lives. So I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Kidd and to Mrs. Fichtner to talk a little bit about the work they're doing in the schools.
Thank you, Mr. Alexis. So social emotional learning is something that's very, very important in both schools. At Valley View, we are continuing to use the resources from the Second Step program as one of the key things that is being used throughout the school. To start the school year, we all worked on the community rebuilding unit, no matter what subject was taught. Each teacher was responsible for using that unit in the lessons in their classroom. We have created a schedule for the entire year of Second Step lessons that rotate through the content areas. In October, our social studies teachers worked on concepts like starting middle school, even though the kids may be in 7th grade, it may be their first time actually being live in person for a full day in the middle school. So 6th, 7th, and 8th grade worked on starting middle school, goal setting, conflicts and perspectives, and understanding bullying. Our school counselor, Ms. McLeod, worked with the 5th graders on different topics about entering a new school year, a new school, getting acclimated, and some basic social skills. Again, bullying and student conflicts was another one that we were sure to work on. Spirit activities. We created a program this year where the kids earn points per grade level for participating in different spirit activities, and they'll get rewards throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, we'll get a special celebration. We had different fall activities, including kindness graffiti, random compliment day, and morning mindfulness activities. All of these things we're trying to put them in place so the kids don't feel them as isolated events, but as ongoing. Ms. Fichtner? Oh, I guess you want me to talk about staff. Okay. The Valley View staff, we've also are taking care of our staff as much as our students. We've put in Mindful Monday activities that are shared on our staff Google Classroom. We've had professional development focused on how you take care of yourself and your levels of stress so that way you can better take care of your students. We are creating a health and wellness club for faculty members. If anyone would like to join, let us know. We have monthly SEL calendars, like we had Optimistic October with different simple activities that you can practice in 5 minutes or less. Monthly themed breakfast sponsored by our Sunshine Club, where different faculty members volunteer to provide a little sustenance and sunshine in the mornings. And then we have different resources that we've put in place to help our students. This past month was Suicide Prevention Month, so those were the resources to just up the training and the availability of those different things. Another thing that we're working on is more of a responsive type of action towards any discipline or code of conduct thing. Like Mr. Alexis said, we all make mistakes. It's learning from them. That's the most important. So we're really taking a close look as a school on more of a responsive discipline type of approach where we're helping kids learn from their mistakes. And that's something that the staff is going through as well. So these are all wonderful things. Ms. Fichtner?
Thank you. Excuse me. So yeah, at Bayberry for social emotional learning, we have a dedicated SEL period, minutes each week, and our classroom teachers each teach those lessons. They worked in the beginning of the school year to map out the entire school year. So they were all on the same page as to what lessons they were doing, what week. And they also work to integrate the skills and reinforce them throughout the week. We also use our morning announcements and our all school meetings to reinforce these second step, the messaging, the skills for learning, empathy, emotion management, and problem solving. We have our all school meetings. We build community and school spirit with a school cheer that is super simple, but the kids absolutely love it. And they love shouting. That's just fun for them, and that integrates the school rules. We also have guidance lessons based on the needs of our students and what is actually happening. So Mrs. Fleming customizes those lessons. And we also have an exciting new preschool SEL curriculum called Al's Pals, and our staff received a lot of training in that, and they really like that program. I also use a lot of the second step concepts in resolving conflicts with students, and so does Mrs. Fleming. So that all helps to reinforce those concepts. Is that you?
No, I just couldn't find the mute. I couldn't unmute myself.
Okay.
So the third goal focuses on ensuring a culturally vibrant, inclusive school community. And of course, that's the focus of our next essential question. These are images from the National Hispanic Month door decorating competition at Valley View. And I'm going to turn this over back to Mrs. Kidd and Mrs. Fickner to talk a little bit about this.
So thank you, George. Yes, those were images of our Hispanic Heritage door decorating contest. We have some excited fifth graders who won. Their door was very research-based, but also culturally relevant to the heritage of the peoples that are living and contributing to the United States presently. At Valley View, we've also had Glsen professional development about creating safe spaces and an inclusive curriculum training. Glsen is the group works on behalf of gay, lesbian, bisexual, all of those groups. I forget what the actual Glsen acronym stands for. We've also had a review of our literature selections in the media center and in our classroom libraries and throughout our curriculum. We have ordered new texts to help expand the representation of different groups during different times. As mentioned, we had Hispanic Heritage celebrations throughout the month with the door decorating contest, music and art appreciation. This month is Native American and Indigenous Peoples Appreciation. So we will be working on celebrating their contributions to our culture and heritage this month. As I already mentioned, restorative discipline training really helps be inclusive of all stakeholders when it comes to any mistakes that children may be making in the classroom or in the school. And we have social issue assignments infused throughout multiple subjects, including music, art, STEM, and then of course in language arts and social studies.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so we also had Glsen professional development. Ours was called Ready, Set, Respect, a guide for elementary educators, really centered on creating an inclusive environment. And we talked a lot about the language that you use, how you organize activities, and ensuring that you're including everyone. It was a really well-received training. We also explored diverse, equitable, and inclusive text. That's what the DEI is there for, to integrate into our classroom lessons and also to enhance our classroom libraries. The staff worked starting with a book list given to us by Watchung IDEA, and then we created a whole long list of texts that we would like to purchase, and I'm going to work on that. And the staff even worked on mapping those resources so that we had a nice diverse diversity across the grade levels. So students were exposed to a variety of texts. We also celebrate Hispanic heritage with lessons across the grade levels. And we do that all the time. We did that for Italian American heritage and other celebrations of cultures and groups throughout the school year, using our morning announcements, guest readers, integrating lessons, and having special days to share culture.
And I just want to add a few points about what we've done to enhance our recruiting, hiring, and training. As I've mentioned before at board meetings, we have joined the Central Jersey Pride organization, which conducts an annual job fair, and which actually resulted in the hiring of one of our staff members this year. That's been a big help. We've broadened our advertising, reaching out to different avenues of how we can make sure the broadest audience is learning about our hiring needs. We've created internships, or I should say partnered with college and universities to allow students to intern in our district in a sort of student teaching kind of cooperative arrangement. We've been working with the Watchung IDEA, and they are helping us ensure that we can get some of the texts that Principal Fichtner just talked about. I've also taken the step of joining certain leadership committees through the NJASA, and that's the New Jersey Association of School Administrators. So I'm serving on the Leadership Diversity Committee this year, and also on the Professional Development Seminar Committee, which already had provided programs about improving the inclusivity of school communities. And just 2 points that I want to mention about our progress in this area, and that's this first point about increased staff diversity. That since July 1, 2021, 42% of our new hires, and this crosses the entire range of our positions here at the schools, whether it's in the classroom, on the athletic fields, or on our custodial staff. 42% of the new hires this year have diverse backgrounds, and in a staff of over 100, raising the percentage of diverse staff is not an easy task, but since September 2020, we've moved from 13% to 18% of diverse staff. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pepe to talk a little bit about our goal for meeting the financial needs of the district. And the way our goal is written is that there's an emphasis on the referendum and strategies for increasing reserves.
Good evening. So we have these 3 bullets here, our emphasis on the referendum, our strategy for increasing reserves, and also to add to what Mr. Alexis just said, our budget process. I had lots of charts and graphs and spreadsheets to share with you, but Mr. Alexis preferred that the audience remain awake when I was finished. So I'm going to be brief. But basically, we've really worked very hard through the Board of Ed Operations Committee and the full board over the past 2 years on the referendum, and we're pretty excited to be getting to the point where this is going to come to fruition, and we hope we have good results for that. But there's a lot of planning that went into that, and we have a pretty good vision for where we would like to go financially with the district. And to be responsible at the same time, we've focused a lot on long-term planning. So we've worked on a long-range facilities plan. We've looked at our budget process and planning. I've been working with our technology and our facilities and all of our budget managers to really think beyond just what do we need for this budget, but focus on how do we create a budget that's sustainable long-term and make sure that we're preparing for the needs that are coming not only in this upcoming year, but for the next 3 to 5 years. And I think we've made a lot of progress in this area, and we're going to continue moving forward with this long-range perspective of financial planning and strategic budgeting.
Okay. Yeah, now I'm just going to turn it back to Principal Kidd and Principal Fichtner just to talk a little bit, very briefly, about the next steps as we move forward with this school year. I talked early on about the Irating data, and I think I got a little too focused on the program itself and not the more important part of the reason we're using it is to have data that our teachers and instructional staff can use to help students learn, and do it on an individualized basis, where we want to focus on meeting kids where they are and helping them learn and grow in a natural sort of process, in an authentic learning environment.
Thank you, Mr. Alexis. In addition to using the Irating data and other data to help us meet kids where they are in the classroom, where the students' data is being used in professional learning community meetings, in department meetings, to look at those trends and see how they need to adjust instruction, what resources they need to use. But in addition to that, we've also put some other programs in place. We've started a math and language arts workshop classes at Valley View. They are taught by content and grade level teachers. And the goal of the program is to help students work on current assignments. So what we've seen is sometimes there may be a gap in understanding that isn't something that needs to be taught in isolation or in a small group, but just needs some extra time and some extra support. So that's the point of this class. Some students are enrolled in math and language arts, some just one of them. And that is a very flexible program. Students may exit if we find that there's no longer a need for it, and they may enter throughout the year as topics change. We also have put in a district-wide pursuit of excellence after school program. We added the fall-winter season. In the past, this program was really done in the spring to prepare for state testing, but we did add the small group instruction to the fall and winter season. And this one focuses on areas identified as gaps or needing reinforcement. For the kids, it's a little bit more intense. There's, additional resources used that are outside of the normal curriculum to really help students, again, where those needs arise. And if it's something that needs more intensive support, we've arranged the groups to kind of meet those needs.
Just to add on to that for Bayberry, just a little more on that. Our teachers have a weekly team time where they will meet and analyze data and plan for instruction, looking at Irating data and also other data such as running records and different things that they've done in the classroom. So they're looking to target their students' needs and plan for their small groups, which will help with responding to intervention and filling in those prerequisite skills that might be lacking. Our pursuit of excellence is going to be starting soon, hopefully mid-December to early January. And then our basic skills program and our reading support is in place, again, for intervention purposes or prerequisite skills. And that's about it.
For the social emotional learning, just continuing the second step lessons taught by each content area teacher, continued professional learning for staff. We have next mark training, which is geared towards teachers choosing different areas that they may need help with student behaviors or learning difficulties that are outside their areas of expertise or that they need to brush up on. We're creating staff SEL buddies, having somebody else in the building that you can rely on to give you that little pep talk or to lean on, whether it has to do with academics or having a bad day or just needing that boost. And then the continued celebration of our diverse groups as school spirit events and also embedded within our curriculum.
And then just to add real quick to that one is that we're also seeking out some more diverse and inclusive curricular materials. I know we're both doing that. So as we look, for example, new social studies series, we're ensuring that whatever we select is very diverse.
With the diversity, equity, inclusion, like Denise mentioned, looking at our curriculum, making sure that those diverse groups are representative, looking for student assemblies, author visits, any type of experiences we give our kids that can really expand their experiences or make sure that they feel that they are included in the school community and seen. A continued review of supplemental resources, and then continued professional learning opportunities to help train our teachers.
That sounds good.
That sounds great. Rich, do you want to comment on this? I mean, this is pretty self-explanatory. I know you're always looking for ways to improve financial efficiency and make sure that we continue saving money and building reserves.
Yeah, as I said, our major focus is learning how to plan long-term, not only for the short term, but thinking through this for years to come and making sure that we're setting ourselves up for success year after year.
Great. And then the final next step is that we'll have future progress reports that I mentioned before. We'll have one in February at the board meeting and then again in June. And thank you, everyone. Thank you for our presenters. You did a fabulous job. Thank you to the board and our audience, our larger community audience, for your time and attention. Do the board members have any questions?
George, I don't really have questions. I just wanted to say that I was definitely encouraged by the amount of progress that the staff and students have made since September with the iReady. And it's great to know that the iReady is aligned with the New Jersey state standards. So we're able to see that progress over time, which is great. I wanted to just thank you, Principal Kidd and Principal Fickner, for your leadership, and also thank the staff for helping to bridge the students, because I know that that's something that we were concerned about, was because of last year bridging them into this next school year, and their dedication to the students is definitely paying off. And we see that through the data that you just presented. I've seen that, the children have shown such enthusiasm just being back in school with their teachers and their classmates. And, most of all, I just wanted to tell the students that their hard work and dedication is paying off too, and that they're doing great and we're proud of them, and that, we're all encouraged and looking forward to the great strides that the students are going to make throughout the rest of the school year. So thank you all for giving this presentation tonight. It was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are very proud of our students and our staff.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'll mention more in the curriculum committee report, but very excited, very encouraged by the progress that George, you and Karen and Denise and their whole staff have made in such a short amount of time. And with a pandemic to deal with last year, obviously a tremendous number of challenges, but a lot to be encouraged about. And just really, really glad to see there's such strong commitment to such a diverse number of topics. It's not just the school curriculum, which obviously is important, but it's teaching the students how to learn differently. It's teaching them it's okay to be wrong. It's teaching them to be kind. It's teaching them about other cultures. And it's just, we're going to have great students become great adults. And I'm really happy to see that. So thank you everyone for all of your help to accomplish that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I really appreciated the presentation too, George. Thank you. And I wanted to just make a comment, and I did have some questions on the data, but seeing the presentations from the STEM and G&T or SOAR teachers was really inspiring. We haven't seen, a lot of the staff in such a long time, and I really enjoyed the design thinking and problem solving explanations. We know how important project-based learning is to their growth, and it's also just fun. It looks fun, which is really refreshing. So that was great, and I enjoyed each of their participation. So when we first received some of the district-wide iReady data, I think it was skewed using a different diagnostic, and in comparing and contrasting them, I can see that you can select a diagnostic based on most recent, and you alluded to this in your presentation, that if you're benchmarking, I guess, against the fall versus the end of the year. And then I see a placement definition that's standard view versus beginning of year view. And my first question is, because I could see clearly that the scores based on one skewing of the diagnostic and placement definition yields different results. And so the first results that I think was provided for the board does show, a lot more in the red, in some cases kind of, 25% of students in at risk, and then the middle yellow was greater than 50%. So my first question is, which diagnostic did parents receive when they received individual scores for their children?
I'm going to let Mrs. Kidd address that because I want to get it correct. But yeah, there are three different views that you can set the diagnostic data to. After we discovered, and this is new for us, and we worked with our rep from Curriculum Associates, when we discovered that there was a more accurate way to assess whether, where the students were at the beginning of the year, that's when we provided the additional data and changed it, because there was a standard view, which is not beginning or end, it's just a default view. And it wasn't, in our view, providing the most accurate information about where the students are right now. So yes, that's what I alluded to. In February, it's going to look a little different because there is no middle of the year, view. So, but there is a way to get a report on the growth of the students. The part I want Mrs. Kidd to address is the what the parents see, because I don't think it's the same as what is indicated. They don't get the view of the triangle or the grade level data. They just get the individual students. And I don't believe there is a difference between, which view it's set at. I don't know the answer to that. So I'll ask if she knows, that's great. If not, we can look into it and let you know.
Hi, Jessica. I just pulled up a parent report because I wanted to make sure that I got it right. So basically what parents see is they see an overall picture of their student. It gives each category, I'm looking at the reading one, phonological awareness, phonics, high frequency words, vocabulary, comprehension literature, comprehension informational text. And then it tells the parent that they either test it out, they're approaching grade level, or they're on grade level. So if they test it out, that means they've surpassed the grade level expectations. So I'm not sure what view this is situated at. I'm assuming it's at the standard view or the end of the year view when I talked to the representatives, because the language that accompanies this report reminds parents that the information they're getting is not based on the beginning of the year. So in other words, if I'm getting a 7th grader's report and it says they're approaching grade level, that's where they should be because they haven't learned the 7th grade curriculum yet. So because that language was in the letter, that's what it would let me, I would assume that it's either the standard view, which is kind of just an overall middle of the road view, or the end of the year progress. What's going to happen is as these reports are generated, as they take the mid-year assessment and the end of the year assessment, the parent individual reports and our district level reports are going to show growth. So what they're going to be able to see is, did Bobby get better? In what areas is he growing? Is he falling behind in some areas? What is the rate of the growth? So all of that's kind of the most important thing to me about the reports, is that the students are growing as the year goes on, and at what rate are they growing, because that really helps inform our instruction and where we need to be. So that would be my answer to you.
Thank you.
Yep, and it also includes national norms on there for the parents. They can see what percentile. It has understanding key terms. So it talks about the placement levels, the scale scores, national norms, the different foundational domains and what they mean. So all that information is on the parent report right there for them. And then of course, we're here if there's any questions.
Yeah, and I think you might be, because what I was hearing was that it's new, like you said, and I think everyone is, it always takes some time to get accustomed to how data is presented, but if there are different ways of slicing and dicing it and presenting it, which I could see clearly there were, because we received one and then we received the second one that looked completely different. It might be worth it maybe next time, or even if you do get the questions and your staff receives the questions, to help people understand, you showed one in this presentation that looked really great. But if using the standard view and the most recent diagnostic rather than end of year view, it shows a more, maybe we should say, realistic picture of which makes sense because they're only at the beginning of the year. You're not going to get as many students that are on grade level at the very beginning of the year. Maybe explaining that and helping parents absorb the data about their own child in the face of seeing kind of an overall rosy picture of the district, that might be helpful.
Let me just jump in real quick. So parents did receive a letter. It doesn't solve exactly what you're saying, and obviously there's growing pains, but I received a letter that's told me that the data was based on where they should be at the end of the year. Right. So as a parent, I'm seeing this in October and I see my children are where they are, understanding though that we have 6-7 months left to go. So yes, there was a letter in the reports explaining that.
Yes, I guess and I knew that there was because I've seen it. I just think that the data presented in this format is for the is benchmarking against current, where they should be in the fall. So it didn't sync with what was received at home, I don't think.
Yeah, totally agree. Like I said, that didn't solve it. I was just pointing out that what I said, but no, I agree. And going forward, I think everything will be a little clearer.
And I did have just one other question for, I guess, George or the principals, whoever, on the Glsen and DEI texts in support of the diversity goals. The literature selections and classroom lessons that were indicated on the slide, and to a certain extent, maybe even the social issues that are interwoven into various assignments and infused in multiple subjects. I know we have a policy in our district that the board approves classroom materials. Let's see how it's worded here. It's instructional materials. Is that how are these new texts introduced, both in terms of, and the policy outlines a specific review process? Just help me understand and maybe help parents understand their access to any new materials that are coming in. How are those worked through an approval process? Is there, I know in our policy, it mentions providing opportunity for public inspection, possibly making committees and ad hoc and parent committees to review. How are we handling that, especially given the subject matter?
Typically, when you have supplemental texts, and I know this is common in many districts, that does not go through a formal board approval process. That would be up to the board if they would like to pursue that. These were more the kind of experiences where we're adding to classroom libraries, or we are making texts that teachers would like to use, as supplemental lessons available to them. And we've received some kind offers to donate texts, but we included the entire staff and we shared that with the curriculum committee. So, that's the approach we use.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I think that's it for the presentation. I'm sorry it went so long. We had a lot to share, but we also have our regular monthly reports from Mr. Toda and the principals, and I know they'll make it as brief as they can so we can move forward into the agenda. So thank you again for everyone's attention and for your questions and comments.
Should I go first?
You can.
Okay. All right, so we'll try to be as brief as possible. Okay, so our fourth grade completed our Start Strong assessments in language arts and math on October 14th and 15th. We are so proud of their hard work. And we look forward to utilizing the data to plan for instruction throughout the year. We had a Bayberry Color Week, October 25th to the 29th. We wore colors to recognize school spirit, Red Ribbon Week, breast awareness, and our favorite colors. We ended the week with our traditional Halloween parade and parties on October 29th. It was so nice to see our students in their costumes, and we welcomed our families to our outdoor parade, which was great. Our staff worked to build collaborative relationships with parents during our parent-teacher conferences on November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. It was exciting to see many of our parents in the building and in person. And then some parents chose their conferences virtually because that was more convenient for them. On November 3rd, we learned about Diwali during our morning announcements, and our staff was treated to a traditional Diwali celebration with some treats. And compliments of our paraprofessionals, Ms. Shilpa and Ms. Divya, so we thank them for that. Today, as Mr. Alexis mentioned, our students honored our veterans with a variety of school and classroom activities, including guest speakers who are currently serving and who have served our country. We had a special assembly today for some of our older students, 2nd grade through 4th grade, organized by one of our former students, Francesca Salas, who came to Bayberry to share her Girl Scout Gold Award project about local veterans. Our students learned why we honor veterans throughout the year, and they met several decorated veterans from the area. We also had some of our 4th grade Girl Scouts speak to their classmates about honoring and appreciating veterans. Then students enjoyed It's a Grand Old Flag as they exited and thanked the veterans for their service. It was a really great day. And finally, I just wanted to update everyone on our Dollars for Duchesne fundraiser that I reported on last month. After adding the online donations to our cash donations, the grand total that we raised was $2,085. We are proud to have come together as a community to support the Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy in their fight to end Duchenne. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Fick.
Good evening, everyone. At Valley View, our month started off with a Student Council Fun Fall Fest and the Student Council elections. The Fall Fest involved student-created themed booths for a little fall fun. Our candidates presented their speeches to the entire student body during lunches. Students then voted via Google Forms. I was very impressed with the composure and ideas presented by all of our candidates. They really did a great job. But congratulations to our 21-22 Valley View Student Council Board. Chelsea Jenkins, our president, Pierce Gornstein and Emily Hawk are our co-vice presidents. Neil Jane is our secretary, and Madison Baknowski is our treasurer. I am looking forward to working with our new student officers and see what ideas they can come up with to make Valley View even better. Our Life Touch photographers were at Valley View on Tuesday, the 9th for picture retakes, and the photos will arrive in December. Our faculty attended a professional workshop on restorative discipline on November 10th. Restorative discipline is a whole school relational approach to building school climate and addressing student behavior that fosters belonging over exclusion, social engagement over control, and meaningful accountability over punishment. What we are looking forward to learning about more, how to successfully implement practices to continue to build a more positive school climate and socially responsible students. For the month of November, Mrs. Keene, our media center specialist, set up America's White Table in our lobby. A small table covered in a white tablecloth set with a plate, silverware, a black napkin, red rose, and an inverted glass to show our concern for our falling and missing military. On the same note, our students and teachers celebrated Veterans Day on Thursday, November 11th. Students planted flags near our front sign as a sign of support and appreciation for the courage and sacrifice of our veterans. STEM classes were visited by a guest veteran who shared information about aviation as well as the meaning of Veterans Day. In our middle school social studies classes, students began to share their Veterans Day projects. Each student had the opportunity to interview a veteran within their family or within our community. If a student was unable to set up an interview, they were provided with vignettes produced by the Medal of Honor Character Development Program. The activity followed a project-based learning model as it asked students to take on the role of a historical researcher tasked with preserving experiences of American veterans through oral and written history. In addition to teaching students about Veterans Day, the project was also intended to engage the community in highlighting the value of a veteran's service. Students and staff utilized resources from our community members here in Watchung, throughout the state of New Jersey, throughout our country, and in some cases have reached out to service members outside of the country. Believe it or not, our first marking period ends tomorrow, November 12th. Report cards will be viewable in Genesis Parent Portal on Friday, November 19th. Thank you.
Really great news from the schools. And we'll have Mr. Toda now. And I also, I'm happy to hear about the student council elections. And we have talked about bringing the student council representatives to the board meetings like we did before the pandemic put us on Zoom.
Thank you, Mr. Alexis. First, the Department of Special Services would like to thank WEF for supporting the purchase of 2 smart boards in 2 of our preschool classrooms. These 2 classrooms did not previously have smart boards, and the smart boards have allowed all of our students in preschool to access the digital resources that we've purchased, especially over the last year and a half, related to the creative curriculum. We'd also like to recognize and thank the Pimenta family for their generous donation of personalized neon yellow safety vests for our preschool staff to wear during parent drop-off and pickup. This thoughtful gift is helping to keep our staff safe while they're outside. Our CPAG is still sponsoring a pie sale for Thanksgiving. The ordering is still available until the 18th. The pies are from Allstead Farm, and the flyer is available in the community events announcement. Supporting our CPAG allows our CPAG to help support our students and our programs in district. And on Monday, November, oh, I'm going to get the date wrong. On Monday, we'll have our first CPAG and Department of Special Services meeting. It will take place virtually at 7 o'clock. In addition to talking about the beginning of the school year and welcoming our new families and staff, we'll also spend some time looking at parental rights in special education.
Thanks, Mr. Toto. The last item on this part of the agenda are the enrollment reports, and we are currently at 624 students.
Okay, thank you, George, and everyone. We'll move on to committee reports. Kevin, can you please give the Human Resources Committee report?
Yes, thanks, Dory. Good evening, everybody. The HR and Personnel Committee met on this Tuesday, November 9th at 4:30. I was there, as well as Jen and Dory and George. We first had an update toward district goals, which I believe George has already touched on, Mr. Alexis touched on, and we discussed the data and noted progress towards a more diverse and inclusive staff. Two of the data points about the progress made were featured in the presentation this evening. It was also noted that the recent hires range from instructional to custodial staff. Next, we discussed a health services coordinator stipend. I believe we're going to have more information on this in December when it's listed for approval, but the committee was in favor of it. Next, we discussed a replacement, a psychologist leave replacement. That's on the agenda as well tonight. And the committee was in favor of this appointment as well. After that, we had an update on high school student volunteers for the Gold Award and Impact Club. The administration, I believe we talked about this last month, but the administration is still waiting for follow-up information from the high school students. As soon as that's received, we'll put the approval of volunteers on the agenda. After that, we discussed the Valley View basketball coach, which we have an appointment for that's on the agenda this evening as well. There are also on the agenda revised co-curricular appointments for Bayberry and Valley View. The committee was in favor of all of these appointments. For Bayberry, this included an expanded robotics and coding club, as well as a book club, and we thought that those were great additions. Last, there is a maternity leave item on this agenda as well. And those are all the updates. Oh, one more, sorry. We also discussed the current travel quarantine requirement and the upcoming concerts. And I believe that Mr. Alexis addressed that earlier. Thank you, Dory.
Thanks, Kevin. Rich, can you please give the Operations Finance Committee report?
Yes, we actually had two meetings, one on the 19th of October, one on the 27th. The first meeting on the 19th centered around the public education for the referendum. We reviewed materials from DRG, marketing, and education department, and made several comments and additions to it, and got back, I think, a very good work product from them on what would be a trifold for the public that will be sent, and also a schedule of events to educate the public. And on the 27th, we continued with that with the planning and rollout of public education on the referendum for the vote on December 14th. We also discussed, Mr. Pepe advised us that the 2021 surplus to reserve accounts is coming in at $714,000. And the district has the option of making the transfer immediately pursuant to the June 24th board resolution, or making the transfer in January as part of the budget process. And the committee opted to keep our options open and make the transfer as part of the budget process in January. So we know exactly what we're dealing with as far as the budget is concerned, and what kind of flexibility we would have to place monies into reserves. And I think we're still going back and forth with the town and the Little League on the proposed lease agreement. I haven't had an update on that since the 27th, but I think that there were some maybe misunderstanding of what was in the lease agreement, and we're trying to work that out. Mr. Pepe, I don't know if you have any further comments on that.
No, after our committee meeting, I did reach out to the Little League to let them kind of correct the things that they said that I didn't think were in line with what we had presented to them. I have not heard back. So I'm once again waiting for a response. I will reach out to them again and see if I can get them to respond.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Adam, can you please give the curriculum committee report?
Sure. We met on Thursday, October 28th, and Jen and Amber were there along with Dory, George, Mrs. Kidd, Mrs. Fickner, and spent a good amount of time reviewing the presentation that they presented today, the district progress toward district goals, the Irating testing results. We also had a guest, a high school student had reached out to the administration about her Gold Scout Gold Award project. And so Ms. Datota and Mr. Alexis had met with her remotely to hear her presentation. And afterwards, Mr. Alexis invited her, she's a current junior, to explain her Gold Award project to the committee. The project is designed to offer an arts integrated reading workshop for young readers who have language-based reading disabilities. We were all extremely impressed by her research, her maturity, her poise, the work that she's done already. She has a website that is extremely impressive, and she is extremely excited to help our students. So Ms. Datota and Mrs. Fickner will take the next steps to coordinate the program with her and her Girl Scout advisor. The workshop would be available to 3rd and 4th graders as an after-school workshop. The holiday observance survey results. So at the time of our meeting, the high school had not made a decision yet. Found out that on Tuesday they decided not to make any changes to the calendar. So at our next meeting, we will be discussing that again. Made sense to wait to hear from the high school because the community members have always expressed the desire to have our calendar match the high school's. So it just made sense to hear what they were going to do. But now we'll take the survey results, we'll review them, and we'll discuss them, and should have an update at the next board meeting. There were an estimated 433 families that could have responded, and we received 158 responses. Bayberry Clubs update. There's still a challenge finding volunteers, but the good news is that the STEM teacher would like to expand the computer, robotics, and coding after school club. So that's nice to hear. And that is all for today.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Joe, can you please give us a policy committee update?
Sure, we were scheduled to have a policy committee meeting this past Monday, but given the light docket and the 2 policies we already had on the schedule for second read, there was nothing additional to discuss, so we postponed it till next month.
Okay, great. Thanks, Joe. Rich, can you please give the legislative liaison update?
Yes, there were a few laws signed in before the lame duck session started. First is addressing the school nurse shortage. The governor signed a bill that permits a certified school nurse who is retired from the teacher's pension system to return to work full-time as a certified school nurse without losing any pension credits. And that's for a period of 1 year, could be extended for another. And then after that requires consent. There is a law now that requires identification cards for students in grades 7 through 12 that when they receive student identification cards, there's a number on the back for suicide prevention hotline. There's a couple of laws on school bus driver safety. I'll just conflate them. The first one amends the current law to hold the Board of Education or a school bus contractor responsible if they approve or assign an individual as a driver or substitute driver of a school bus without first complying with existing provisions of law concerning the training, certification, and criminal history record checks of school bus drivers. And then there's a bus contractor blacklist. So Mr. Pepe, in light of that, I know we outsource this, and I would just take another look at our contracts and make sure we have the proper indemnification and insurance clauses in there. In light of this, I'm sure we do, but it's worth another check. And that's really, there's an alternate route for certification to expedite candidates for teaching in grades 7 through 12 from colleges. This is all, I think, as you probably realize, there's a shortage of nurses, there's a shortage of bus drivers, and there's a shortage of teachers. And I think these bills are all meant to address those issues. That's all I had that affect us. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Adam, Amber, anything for community engagement?
Yeah, just two quick things. One, the trunk or treat was fantastic. So thank you to WEF, as always, for organizing that. It was a beautiful day. You might want to consider always doing it in the afternoon versus at nighttime when it's nice and cold in October. It was amazing to see such a great turnout and some semblance of normalcy. So it was a lot of fun. I think George is going to announce the winner of the trunk tonight. Just kidding. And then important walkthroughs. So Tuesday and Wednesday next week at 6 o'clock, our architects will be leading walkthroughs of Bayberry and Valley View. And we encourage all of our residents to take advantage of these opportunities to see the conditions of the schools, learn more about the specific projects, ask questions, and be informed prior to the visit. So again, next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, 6 p.m. at both schools. And that's it.
Yes, and trunk or treat was great. I agree with Adam. The weather was beautiful and the kids were warm, somewhat, as compared to at night. And it was nice to see everyone together and just seeing each other after such a long time. And the other thing is that I think with the IDEA committee, Principal Kidd and, it's a Principal Kidd or Principal Fickner that sent the email with the list of books. And George, we had forwarded to the IDEA committee to review and possibly purchase them for us. And if not, I think it's going to be WEF, right? That's who we're going to ask the grant from. So I don't think it went through the curriculum committee. It came through community engagement. Right, George?
Yes, Mrs. Fickner is the one who prepared that list in conjunction with her staff. And I'll say the trunk or treat really was wonderful, and we had some board members with some really fabulous costumes.
Okay, thank you, Adam and Amber. Kevin, is there anything under Somerset County Educational Services Commission?
I don't have anything for this meeting, Dory. Thanks.
And Jessica, anything under Somerset County School Board Association?
No, nothing since last meeting.
And Amber, anything under New Jersey School Board Association?
No report this time. Thank you.
Okay, and community engagement, Mrs. Roberto Ferrara, is there any update from the PTO?
Hi, good evening. Yes, thank you very much, Dory. Right now, we are looking into opening up our second window for food sales in early December. So please look out for more information to follow. We still are continuing with our spiritware. We have our book fair going on at Bayberry on Saturday, starting at 11 a.m. We have our full fundraiser that's still going on till December, where all of your merchandise will be shipped to your homes. We have our yearbook for Bayberry for sale. We have our school store sign up, and if you use code 160136, you should be able to sign up with that. We have Amazon Smiles. We still have our birthday signs. And our next meeting is this coming Tuesday. And we're always looking for volunteers, especially at Valley View, due to the fact that we have a lunch shortage of staffs there for them. So if that continues, unfortunately, we will have to start cutting out food sales for certain days. Other than that, that's about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Kokiata, is there, or anyone from WEF, is there any update from WEF? Okay, and Mrs. Newsome, or anyone from CPAG, is there any update from CPAG? Okay, so we're going to move on to comments from the public on agenda items. We welcome input from the public. There are 2 times during the meeting when the public is invited to speak. The first opportunity to comment on agenda items only is now. The second opportunity for public comment is towards the end of the meeting. Total time allotted for public comment is 30 minutes. Before you make your comment, please state your name and address. In the event it appears the public comment portion of the meeting may exceed 30 minutes, the presiding officer may limit each statement made by a participant to 3 minutes duration. Comments submitted to the board secretary prior to the meeting will be read first. Our public forums are not structured as a question and answer session, but rather are offered as opportunities to share input with the board. In instances where the board feels a response is needed, the presiding officer or superintendent will address the comment. New Jersey statutes do not permit the board to discuss personnel or hiring in public session. Names of students should not be used. Mr. Pepe, will you please read the statement due to the recording of this meeting?
Members of the public should consider their comments in light of legal rights of those affected and identified in their comments, and be aware that they are personally, legally responsible with potential liability for comments that they make to the board. The board shall not be held liable for comments made by members of the public.
Are there any, did we receive any written statements, Mr. Pepe?
We received one, but it was not related to an agenda item, so I'll be reading that at the second public comment.
Okay, and it looks like we have 1 hand raised, or 2 now, but one is Chandri. I can't see the
Hi,
rest
good
of it.
evening, everyone. Yes, thank you,
Oh.
Dory. My question is from, again, the Irating So thank you so much. The excellent report that we have seen and received the letters from school saying the level of my child and other children, hopefully, so that the parents would have received also. So my question is, the iReady is a great way of like assessing the student. How long this is going to go to diagnose? Is this like every year are you going to go? Because so at the beginning of the school year or middle of the school year, if a child identified as, or they reached their grade level or like the beginning of the grade level, what is the progress the school is taking from that report? So if a child is already like reached the level at the beginning of the school year, are they going to move that child to a different classroom to learn more? Because still they are staying in the same classroom and learning the same subject. And whereas the Go Math they are following, which is totally different mathematical method than iReady method. So the iReady, they have the different ways of teaching the math. Whereas the Go Math, still you like doing parallelly. So either we have to stop completely the Go Math and switch into the iReady mathematical textbook to continue to work with the teachers. Or, so this IDD diagnostics has no sense for the children to continue to work. So we only get to know the children, okay, students, oh, they're reaching the different levels. So I'm a little bit confused with this iReady and parallelly going Go Math textbook for the students, because we are confusing them with two different way of learning mathematical. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. George, did you want to address that or?
I'll just say that, we didn't start to use iReady with that intention of, making, decisions about, where students are placed in the classroom or moving grade levels. And we are using it to give us one, form of data feedback, assessment feedback to help us meet the students, as I said, where they are and help them continue to learn and grow. The only reason we're including it, next year at this time, we'll be using the NJSLA data that we'll have after the spring assessment. So that's what I'll say right now, but I do appreciate the feedback, and it's something we can look into with respect to Go Math.
Okay, great, thanks, George. We have another hand raised, I think it's Stephanie Kala.
Yes, hello, thank you. I just wanted for the record to address the board this evening and let them know how deeply disappointed I am with the lack of organization regarding the mandatory quarantine the Watchung district decided to follow. I've confirmed that no other districts in our neighboring towns are following this recommendation, such as Summit, Warren, Bridgewater, Bernards Township, and Westfield, to name a few. Children who have been put on mandatory quarantine, I don't believe should be marked absent, as they have been trying their best to keep up with assignments, even though there have been very little support during this time. Also, if you're requesting children to stay home after they've been traveling out of the state for whatever reason, you should at least have an action plan to assist them during this time, such as virtual online learning. This should be provided at the least, and is what also the state is saying should be the protocol. Many other districts who are following this recommendation to quarantine are indeed offering kids remote learning. Furthermore, I also wanted to state that I really do not think that it should be up to the teachers or the nurse to interrogate children on their whereabouts. That should be between the parents and the teacher and the principal. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I don't see any other hands raised. So we're going to move on to action items. Jen, can you please move administrative items?
Yes. I move A1, approve minutes of previous meeting. A2, accept school security drill reports. A3, accept bus evacuation drills. A4, approve settlement agreement. And A5, approve appointments.
Second.
Oh, thanks. I was trying to find my unmute button. Is there any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes, on all but A4. I just apologize. I couldn't find it in the packet, and having not seen it at all, I just want to make sure I abstain, but a yes on all the other action items.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad, where did Mrs. Murad go?
You're on mute,
She's
Amber.
there, but I don't know
There
if she
she
can
is.
hear you.
Mrs. Murad,
I said yes, sorry.
thank you.
No.
Mrs. Sadvani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharf,
Yes.
and Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Okay, motions pass.
Hey, Kevin, can you please move personnel items?
Yes. I move personnel items. B1, approve school psychologist leave replacement. B2, approve Valley View basketball coach. B3, appoint Valley View co-curricular revised. B4, appoint Bayberry co-curricular revised. There are two B5s. Oh, no, sorry, B5, approve maternity leave of absence. B6, approve unpaid leave of absence.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I'm not necessarily interested in a discussion. I just wanted to say thank you to the administration for finding the basketball coach, because I know you were looking for a while, and I did just want to say I was really happy that some more fall pursuit of excellence was added on to the list of co-curricular, and then it's very exciting to see the coding and robotics club, the technology club, and the book club. So I just wanted to make a comment. Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad, Mrs. Murad, you're still muted.
Yes, I don't know why it's not working. Every time I say yes.
Mrs. Sadvani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motions pass.
Okay, Rich, can you please move operation items?
Yes. Move item C1, approve payment of bills. Item C2, approve transfer of funds. Item C3, accept financial reports. Item C4, accept Watchung Educational Fund grants. Item C5, authorize submission of comprehensive maintenance plan. Item C6, authorize submission of ESEA carryover amendment. Item 7, authorize submission of IDEA carryover amendment. And C8, approve professional travel and related expenses.
Is there a second?
Second, Jeff.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Sedvani,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
and Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion's passed. Mrs. Harvey, can I just make a quick update?
Sure.
This was brought to my attention earlier and I missed it when we got on the agenda, but the minutes that the board approved tonight, the ones that you reviewed that were in the packet were from October 14th. There's a typo on the agenda. The agenda says the minutes from September 23rd. So I just wanted to announce that publicly that in this board minutes, I'm going to correct that. So it reflects that tonight you approved the minutes from the October 14th meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rich. Adam, can you please move curriculum items?
I sure can. Move D1, approve student club fundraisers.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Sedvani,
Yes.
and Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
and Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Hey, Joe, can you please move policy items?
Sure. Move policy for a second reading.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just because we didn't meet, I want to make sure I even understand this, and maybe in discussing the others can have some clarity as well. The virtual or remote instruction program, which is a mandated policy that we have to adopt, just to be clear, what the net is that we can no longer use snow days if there's an individual snow day, rather than a declared state of emergency to do a more catastrophic weather event. They will not be remote. Is that correct?
Yes, that's how I understand it, unless something changes with the state government. We can't do it unless it's a declared emergency for more than 3 days.
Okay, just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Sedvani,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
and Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we'll go to board business. There's nothing listed under there. Is there any board business to discuss?
Mr. Pepe for organizing lunches for the students on October 26th. I ended up going to 2 different vendors and that failed, and Mr. Pepe was able to help us and organize that. So that was great. And being able to get those kids, just food on that day, when vendors could not just get over 22 because it was flooded. And thank you for going down to 22 in Costco. And it warmed my heart to know that, you're there and you're definitely, you're always looking out for the kids. So thank you.
Here, here. Thanks, Rich.
Okay, we're going to move into comments from the public. Please remember to raise your hand and to state your name and address before speaking.
Okay, I'll begin with the comment that was emailed to me. This is from Renu Cheng from Hill Hollow Road. Dear Board of Education, I am a parent of a second grader. It was mentioned to me our current class has 77 students in it, which is much larger than all the other grades. I'm concerned for the next years regarding the classroom size and the teacher situation. Could someone please educate us parents as to where we are regarding this issue? I understand that there hadn't been much conversation about this as per other concerned parents. I would like to participate live or via online, but I work late, typically on Thursday evenings. However, if my presence is preferred for this issue to be addressed, then I shall make arrangements to move my work schedule around to attend. I look forward to hearing about this in the recording or from other parents. Thank you so much for the time to read my concerns.
I'll just add here that typically that is done during the budget process. If we determine that we need an additional teacher in a particular grade, and I think what Mrs. Chang is referring to is that we have 4 teachers in K through 2 and 3 teachers at the 3rd and 4th grade levels, because we've been able to accommodate the size of the classes, the overall class, grade level class, with 3 teachers. If that changes next year, and we will work with the board to make sure that we address that with the budget process.
Great.
Question, I'm sorry, George, but you reminded me that I don't think I knew these numbers, if they've changed since when I had kids in the school. What is the max cap that you can have per class?
I don't think there's a max cap. I know we have a board policy that addresses the size of the classes, and we've been able to stay within those numbers. But we're very fortunate here to have small class sizes. So, some districts in the county and around the state have class sizes much larger, beyond 25 of class, but we've been fortunate here.
There was never a state mandated cap for New Jersey?
I'm not aware of a state mandated cap that would affect us. There might be one that's a number much higher than 25.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I don't see any hands raised. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
Or there's a hand.
Oh, there is. Oh, okay. We have Anthony Ingracia.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Anthony Ingracia, 40 High Oaks Drive. Congratulations to the returning re-elected board members. I believe that in walking the neighborhood with my running mate, John Guzman, on the weekends, we learned a great deal while seeking to earn the votes of our fellow citizens. And I believe we also likely asked face-to-face more people to vote for Rich Buccarelli than any other 2 people did in town. Congratulations also to Rita Sadvani for becoming the newest member of the Watchung Board of Education. I enjoyed hearing the swearing in tonight, but I didn't hear any part of the oath being a loyalty pledge to Dory Harvey and Jennifer Scharf. But that almost sounds like what Mrs. Scharf expects of all new board members, so I guess I will be a disappointment to her. I wasn't planning on speaking this evening, but after the opening comment from Jennifer Scharf directed specifically towards me, I find it appropriate to respond briefly. First, I'm not really interested in being lectured on campaign etiquette from Mrs. Scharf, the person who wrote a letter to the Echo Sentinel editor in support of her favorite candidate that was so packed with untrue statements and hubris that the editor pulled the letter within a few hours of it being published. Secondly, Mrs. Scharf is offended by my reminding the importance of the quality of humility in our board, but continues to put herself and Dory Harvey forward as the foremost experts in education. I'm sorry, but I understand the basic resumes of both, and this does not make either person an educational guru that we should all defer to for the running of our school district. The public comments I have made in recent meetings were not intended to armchair quarterback all that's happened over the last 2 years that Dory Harvey's been president. And I hope to work closely and in good faith with all of the board members. I've really only stressed in my public comments the importance of transparency and open discussion, especially when we're changing long-standing traditions. And, it was very focused on some of the recent bigger issues that have come up and, long-standing traditions that were being drastically changed without any public discussion. As I walked the neighborhoods over the last month or two, I also heard from parents and citizens that were very surprised that the Valley View parent-teacher conferences were canceled with no engagement with the public from the community. I'm not campaigning, and I'm not trying to, return the unkindness of Jen Scharf with some other got you. I'm just saying that these are the kind of things that I would be concerned about. And I would expect that I would probably speak out if it's not going to be discussed in public. That how many decades has there been parent-teacher conferences at Valley View? Even through the COVID precautions last year, they were still held on Zoom. So when nothing is said, except after parents start asking what's going on, why aren't any conferences being scheduled, there's an email saying we're not doing them anymore. And you can just email or call when you want to talk to your child's teacher. There's a lot that's lost there. And I think that that's an example of something that could have been discussed before making that change. And if it was, this is the problem with committees that, only discuss within committee, and then the majority, goes out and votes together. This wasn't even an opportunity to do that. I'm just saying that this is the kind of thing that I would likely speak up about, when future issues come up. So thank you for your time. I truly do look forward to working hard and working with all of you. And I applaud the presentations that were made this evening. I do have some concerns about some things that were said regarding kind of finding loopholes in board policies, but I look forward to working together, and I wish you all a very good evening. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Harvey, if I may, just one thing. It wasn't the newspaper that pulled the letter. It was actually another board member who contacted the newspaper and asked it to be taken down. The paper actually had absolutely no problem with that letter. Thank you.
Okay, we have another hand raised. It says Jane Doe. So if you could just remember to say your name and address, that would be great. You just have to unmute yourself. Okay, I think their hand went down, so I guess they're not going to comment. Any other comments before we adjourn? Nope. Okay, don't see any. Okay, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Any discussion?
Oh, Jane's
Jane,
back
go
up.
raise their hand again.
You want to give her a chance?
Oh, sure.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, this is Jane. I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to hear me. Okay.
Yes, we can hear
my
you.
name is Jane from Watchung, and I am concerned about
Excuse me, I think we're supposed to give our full name and address when we address the board.
full name and address.
Yes.
Oh, I see. I'm a Watchung resident.
Right, we're supposed to give our street address, your full name and street address when you're making a comment.
I see. Mountain. Well, okay. Well, we have two: Johnson Drive and Mountain Boulevard.
Okay.
So my
So we
if
don't
you
even have a
can't-
last name.
Yeah, if you can't provide your first and last name and street address, other than just the names of
is
streets
it
in town, then
necessary? I do live here.
Yeah, yes, it is. This is how we've always conducted the meetings.
I just wanted to say about the vaccine that it should not be mandated and like there shouldn't be set up any.
Okay, miss, if you can state your full name and address before making a comment, that would be great. Otherwise, we're gonna have to move on.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
You can move on. Yeah, I have to look into it if, you know, I'm a Watchung resident, I have to identify who I am.
yes, that is correct.
I can give you the block and lot number.
Okay.
All right, I guess we'll speak at another time. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. I don't see any other hands raised. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you for joining us this evening. This meeting is adjourned.